Welcome to Easy English Official. I'm so glad you are here today. This is not just another English channel. This is a place where stories meet lessons, where language meets life. And today, you are not only going to practice English, you are going to discover a story that might change the way you see yourself. You see, learning English is not only about grammar or vocabulary. It is about courage. It is about confidence. It is about finding your voice and using it to create the life you dream of. And that is exactly what this story is about. We are going to walk together through the journey of Daniel, a boy who started just like many of us, afraid, uncertain, doubting himself. But step by step, with mistakes, with small victories, with courage, he became someone completely different. His story will inspire you, and at the same time, it will give you the tools to grow your English in your life. So I want you to stay with me until the end. Because every chapter carries a lesson, and the final message is one you cannot miss. Listen carefully, practice the sentences, feel the emotions, and let yourself be part of this journey. This is more than English learning. This is motivation, hope, and personal growth all in one. So get comfortable, open your mind, and let's begin. A small beginning. Daniel was born in a small town, a place where the days all looked the same. The streets were dusty, the houses were simple, and people lived quietly without much change. Every morning, Daniel woke up before the sun, not to study or play, but to help his father in the market. He carried heavy baskets of fruit, counted coins with tired eyes, and listened to the voices of customers who never remembered his name. To them, he was just another boy in the crowd. To himself, he was someone who wanted more. Daniel's dream was not small. He wanted to become someone who could stand tall, speak confidently, and teach others. He wanted to learn English, a language he believed could open doors to the world outside his little town. But to a boy with no money, no books, and no time, that dream seemed far away, like a star shining above him, beautiful but unreachable. Sometimes, while sitting by the market stall, Daniel would watch people pass by. He noticed the men who worked hard but looked tired, their shoulders bent from years of carrying heavy loads. He noticed the women who sold food with hands rough from cooking and cleaning. He wondered, will my life also look like this? Will I work, eat, sleep, and repeat until the years are gone? The thought made his chest feel heavy. But inside that heaviness lived a fire. It was small, like a candle in the dark, but it was real. Whenever he felt invisible, whenever the world told him he was nothing special, the fire whispered to him, "You are meant for more." He did not always believe it, but he always felt it. At night, Daniel lay on a thin mat in his small room. The walls were cracked, and the air smelled of smoke from nearby kitchens. His body was tired, but his mind refused to sleep. He stared at the ceiling and imagined another life. He saw himself standing in front of a group of people, speaking English without fear. He saw himself traveling to places he had only read about in old magazines. He saw himself smiling, free, proud of what he had become. Yet as morning came, those dreams disappeared with the rising sun. Reality returned quickly. His father called him to work. His friends laughed at him for talking about studying. Even his teacher once told him, "Daniel, don't think too high. People from here don't go far." Those words cut him deeply, like a knife to his heart. But instead of killing his dream, they made it grow stronger. One afternoon, Daniel sat alone near the river outside his town. The water moved slowly, carrying leaves and sticks away. He threw a stone and watched the ripples spread across the surface. He thought about his life. He thought about the dream that refused to leave him alone. He asked himself, "Why do I feel this way? Why do I want more, when everyone else seems satisfied?" The answer was not clear, but he knew he could not ignore it. He remembered his grandmother, a woman with kind eyes who often told him stories before she passed away. One of her favorite sayings was, "No one will fight for you, Daniel. If you want something, you must fight for it yourself." Those words echoed in his mind like a soft but steady drumbeat. The world saw him as small, but inside, he felt something big. The world gave him reasons to quit, but his heart gave him one reason to continue: hope. Hope that even a boy from a forgotten town could build a new story for himself. Still, the fight would not be easy. Each day, he faced choices that pulled him in two directions. Should he accept his life as it was, or should he step into the unknown and chase something greater? Fear told him to stay where he was. Courage told him to move forward. He did not yet know which voice would win, but he knew the battle had begun. That night, as he lay once again on his thin mat, Daniel closed his eyes and whispered words he had never spoken aloud before. "One day," he said softly, "I will fight for my dream." His voice was quiet, but in the silence of the room, it felt powerful. It was the first time he admitted the truth, not just to himself, but to the future waiting for him. And though nothing changed around him, something changed inside him. The boy who once felt invisible had taken his first step, not with his feet, but with his heart. The road ahead would be long, filled with obstacles and doubts, but in that moment, Daniel knew, the start he dreamed of reaching might not be so far after all. The night passed slowly, the fire inside him burning a little brighter. What he did not know was that the next day, the world would begin to test him, to see if his whispered promise was real or just another dream fading into the dark. The weight of reality. The next morning began like all the others. Daniel rose before the sun, his body already heavy with the memory of yesterday's work. His father called from outside, asking him to carry sacks of vegetables to the market. Daniel obeyed quietly, though his mind was still filled with the whisper he had spoken to himself the night before, "One day, I will fight for my dream." But as the day unfolded, that whisper felt smaller and smaller under the weight of reality. At the market, Daniel worked without pause. He lifted baskets, counted coins, and smiled at customers who hardly noticed him. The hours stretched long, and his shoulders ached. He wanted to study. He wanted to learn. But there was no time. His family needed him now, and every small coin mattered. Each task he completed reminded him of his duty, but each moment also pulled him further away from his dream. When the market closed, Daniel sometimes tried to read old pages from a worn-out English book. The letters looked strange, the words were hard, and his tired eyes made mistakes. His friends walked by and saw him reading. They laughed. Daniel, why waste your time? English will not fill your stomach. You will always be here with us. Stop dreaming. Their words hit him like stones, one after another. He tried to smile, but inside, his heart felt weak. Even at school, the place where he hoped for encouragement, he often found the opposite. One afternoon, he gathered the courage to tell his teacher, "Sir, I want to learn English well. Maybe one day I can travel, or teach." The teacher looked at him for a moment, then shook his head slowly. "Daniel, be realistic. People like us do not get that far. Better to focus on what you have here." The words were spoken softly, but they crushed Daniel's spirit like a heavy weight pressing down on his chest. Walking home that day, Daniel carried not only his bag of books but also the voices of everyone around him. His friends laughed. His teacher doubted. His family relied on him. The world seemed united in telling him, "Stay where you are. Do not try." He wondered if maybe they were right. Perhaps his dream was too big, too far, too foolish. That night, lying on his mat, he thought about the future. He imagined himself still working in the market 10 years from now, doing the same tasks, earning the same little money, feeling the same quiet frustration. He imagined his friends still laughing, his family still depending on him, his teacher still saying, "Be realistic." The picture frightened him. His dream felt like a bird inside a cage, beating its wings but unable to fly. Yet, even in that fear, he could not forget the image of the star he had once seen in his mind. The life he longed for, the person he wanted to become. The star was still there, shining above him, but it looked smaller now, dimmer, further away. His heart wrestled between two voices. One voice said, "Give up. Life is already decided. Be like everyone else." The other whispered, "Keep going. There is more waiting for you." The struggle was not only outside him but also inside. He wanted to be loyal to his family, but he also wanted to be loyal to himself. He wanted to be accepted by his friends, but he also wanted to rise beyond their expectations. He wanted to respect his teacher, but he could not accept a life without growth. This battle made him feel torn, as if he were standing at a crossroads with no clear path. One evening, after a long day, Daniel sat alone under the open sky. He looked up and searched for the star he often dreamed about. The night was cloudy, and the stars were hidden. The emptiness above him reflected the emptiness he felt inside. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Maybe they are right. Maybe my dream is too big. Maybe I should stop before I waste my life." But when he opened his eyes, he saw one small star appear between the clouds, faint but steady. His heart stirred. He remembered again his grandmother's words, "No one will fight for you, Daniel. If you want something, you must fight for it yourself." The memory gave him a small breath of strength, but the weight of the world was still pressing down. He sat there in silence, knowing he was facing a choice. He could let the dream die quietly, bury it deep inside, and live the life everyone expected. Or he could carry the heavy weight, risk the laughter, endure the doubt, and keep walking toward the star. Neither path was easy. Both would cost him something. Daniel lowered his head, his hands pressed tightly together. His heart was not ready to choose, but he knew a decision was coming. One way or another, he would soon have to decide if his dream was worth the fight or if reality was too strong to resist. And in that quiet, uncertain moment, he almost let the dream slip away. The moment of doubt. That night, the town was quiet. The market stalls were empty, the streets were dark, and even the dogs had stopped barking. Daniel lay on his thin mat, staring at the cracked ceiling above him. The silence felt heavy, as if the whole world was pressing down on his chest. His body was tired from the day's work, but his mind refused to rest. Instead, his thoughts circled again and again, each one darker than the last. He imagined his future stretched out in front of him like an endless road. The same work. The same small earnings. The same tired faces around him. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, nothing would change. He saw himself older, still carrying heavy baskets, still standing behind a stall, still invisible to the world. The picture froze his heart. He thought, is this really all there is for me? Is this my whole life? For the first time, Daniel felt the weight of hopelessness. He had carried heavy sacks of fruit, but this was heavier. It was the weight of dreams dying inside him. It was the weight of believing the voices around him. His teacher's words returned, "Be realistic. People like us don't get that far." His friend's laughter echoed in his ears, "English will not help you." The voices grew louder, filling his head until he wanted to cover his ears and make them stop. He turned on his side and pulled the thin blanket up to his chin. But even then, the fear followed him. Fear of failure. Fear of wasting time. Fear of hoping for something that might never come true. The darkness in the room seemed to grow thicker, matching the darkness inside his heart. Daniel whispered to himself, "Maybe they are right. Maybe I am foolish. Maybe my dream is too big." His voice cracked, and his eyes burned. For a moment, he almost believed it. He almost surrendered to the thought of giving up, of letting his dream fade away like smoke in the night air. But then, in the middle of that silence, another voice rose inside him. It was not the laughter of his friends. It was not the doubt of his teacher. It was a memory, soft but strong. He heard his grandmother's voice, clear in his heart, as if she were sitting beside him once again. She had always believed in him, even when no one else did. Her words came back, "No one will fight for you, Daniel. You must fight for yourself." The memory hit him like a spark in the darkness. He could almost see her face, the lines of wisdom around her eyes, the gentle strength in her smile. She had lived a hard life, but she never complained. She always told him that strength was not given by the world, it was chosen by the heart. Her voice reminded him of who he could be. Daniel lay still, listening to that memory. The hopeless voices grew quieter. The fire inside him, the same fire he had felt as a boy, flickered again. It was small, almost fragile, but it was alive. He realized that his teacher's doubt and his friend's laughter were not the final truth. They were just noise. His grandmother's words were truth. If he wanted something, no one would hand it to him. No one would carry him there. He would have to fight. The thought scared him, but it also gave him strength. For the first time that night, he sat up on his mat. The air was cool, the moonlight slipping through the small window. He looked at his empty hands and whispered, "I have nothing now. But I still have myself. I still have my will." His heart beat faster as if waking up. He knew the road would be long. He knew he would still face laughter, doubt, and even failure. But he also knew something more important: the choice was his. He could choose to quit, or he could choose to fight. And if he chose to fight, there was still hope. Daniel lay back down, but this time the ceiling did not feel so heavy above him. His eyes slowly closed, and as sleep came, he whispered again, more firmly now, "No one will do it for me. I must fight." The night remained dark, but inside Daniel, the fire was burning brighter. What had felt like the end only hours before now felt like the beginning of something new. The world outside had not changed. His life had not suddenly become easier. But inside him, a decision had been made. He would not let his dream die, not tonight, not ever. And as he drifted into sleep, he carried with him both the weight of reality and the spark of hope. One was heavy, but the other was stronger. That spark would lead him to his first step, and that first step would lead him to the fight that waited ahead. The first small step. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a quiet fire in his chest. The night before, he had almost let go of his dream. But his grandmother's voice still echoed in his mind. "No one will fight for you, Daniel. You must fight for yourself." Those words stayed with him as he went about his day. They reminded him that if he wanted change, he had to start moving. Not tomorrow, not one day in the future, but today. At first, the idea of starting felt impossible. His dream was so big, and his life was so small. How could a boy from a poor town, with no resources, hope to master a language that was not his own? The thought nearly froze him. But then he realized, if the mountain is too high, you don't climb it all at once. You take one step, and then another. So Daniel told himself, "I will start small." He began to save a little money. Each day, after working in the market, he put aside a few coins. It wasn't much. Sometimes he was tempted to spend it on small pleasures, but he held back. Week after week, he saved until finally, he had enough to buy a second-hand English book. The cover was worn, the pages bent, but to Daniel, it was treasure. He held it in his hands as if it were gold. That night, after everyone else had gone to bed, Daniel opened the book by the light of a small candle. He traced the words with his finger. Some he recognized, most he did not. He whispered them slowly, one by one. His tongue felt heavy, his accent thick. He stumbled again and again. But he kept going. At first, it was hard. He could not remember words from one day to the next. He would practice for hours, then forget by morning. Sometimes he grew frustrated, even angry with himself. He thought, maybe I am not smart enough. Maybe my friends were right. The laughter of others returned to him, and it stung. A few times, he wanted to close the book and never open it again. But then he reminded himself, I must fight for myself. He forced his eyes back to the page. He whispered the words again. 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks. Slowly, he began to notice something. Words that once slipped away now stayed with him. He could remember apple. He could remember book. Simple, small words, but they were his victories. Daniel began to carry the book with him everywhere. At the market, when customers were few, he would open it and practice quietly. Sometimes, people noticed. They laughed at his strange sounds. Some even mocked him. Listen to Daniel. He thinks he will speak English. Their laughter cut deep, but Daniel swallowed his pride. He knew that if he gave in to shame, he would lose everything he had worked for. So instead, he let their voices become fuel. One day, he thought, these same voices will not laugh. They will listen. Every night, no matter how tired he was, Daniel opened his book. Some days he made progress, some days he did not. But he kept showing up. Step by step, something began to change. His mouth grew more familiar with the sounds. His memory grew stronger. What once felt impossible now felt possible, even if only a little. One evening, after weeks of practice, Daniel greeted a stranger in broken English. His voice shook, and his words were simple. But he spoke. The stranger smiled and answered. Daniel did not understand every word, but he understood enough. And in that moment, he felt a spark of pride. He had spoken in English. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but he had spoken. It was then that Daniel understood something important. Progress does not come in giant leaps. It comes in small steps, repeated again and again. Each time he practiced, he built a little more strength. Each failure taught him patience. Each success, no matter how small, gave him courage. Daniel's routine became a quiet rhythm of persistence. Wake up early. Work hard. Save money. Practice English. Sleep. Repeat. Day after day, this rhythm shaped him. He began to see that dreams are not built in one night. They are built in the daily choices we make, in the discipline of showing up even when no one believes in us, even when no one is watching. One night, as Daniel sat with his book open in front of him, he paused. He looked at the candlelight dancing across the pages. He thought about how far he still had to go. His dream was still distant, like a star in the sky. Still distant, like a star in the sky. But for the first time, he felt certain that he was walking toward it. Slowly, but surely. He smiled and whispered to himself, dreams don't grow in a day, but if I keep walking, I will reach them. With that thought, he turned the page and kept reading, one small step at a time. Facing the world's doubt again. Daniel's progress was slow but real. He could now read simple sentences, greet strangers, and even write small notes in English. Each step gave him a quiet sense of pride. But as his inner confidence grew, the voices outside grew louder. His friends, who once laughed playfully, now spoke with sharper words. "Daniel, why waste your time?" they asked. "English will not feed you. You should focus on your job. You should focus on real life." Their voices carried doubt, but also fear, the fear of trying and failing. Yet every time Daniel heard them, his heart grew heavy. He began to wonder if they were right. At work, the weight of judgment grew heavier. Daniel's boss noticed how tired he looked in the mornings. "You stay up too late, don't you?" the boss sneered. "Studying? Ha! That is useless. If you want to succeed, work harder here, not in a book." The laughter of his co-workers joined in. It stung more than Daniel wanted to admit. He stayed silent, but inside, he felt the clash between their world and his dream. Even at home, the struggle followed him. His family, who once encouraged him, began to lose patience. His mother sighed as she watched him studying by candlelight. "Daniel, you are always reading. But what about your duties here? What about the family? This dream of yours, it takes too much." He could hear the disappointment in her voice, and it pierced his heart. Daniel felt torn. On one side, there was loyalty to his family, his friends, his boss, his community. On the other side, there was his dream, a fragile seed of hope that was only just beginning to grow. He asked himself, "Am I selfish? Am I wrong to keep going?" At night, alone with his thoughts, these questions haunted him. The pressure was heavy. He thought about giving up many times. He thought about closing the book, putting it on a shelf, and never opening it again. That choice would make life easier. People would stop laughing. His boss would stop mocking him. His family would stop worrying. He could belong again. But deep inside, Daniel knew belonging at the cost of his dream would only leave him empty. One evening, while sitting outside under the stars, Daniel remembered the words that had once given him courage. "No one will fight for you, Daniel. You must fight for yourself." The memory of his grandmother's voice returned like a whisper from the past. He realized then that every voice around him had its own purpose. His friends spoke from fear. His boss spoke from control. His family spoke from worry. But his inner voice, the one that whispered quietly in the silence, spoke from truth. The truth was simple: he could not live someone else's life. If he surrendered now, he would never forgive himself. So Daniel made a choice. He chose the harder path, the path of persistence. The next day, when his friends laughed, he smiled politely but did not stop practicing. When his boss mocked him, he bowed his head and kept working, saving his energy for the night when he could study again. When his family sighed in disappointment, he whispered to himself, "One day, they will understand." It was not easy. There were nights when the weight of loneliness almost broke him. He missed the warmth of being accepted, the comfort of being praised. But each time he opened his book, he reminded himself why he started. Each word learned was a step forward. Each sentence spoken was proof that his dream was real, even if others could not see it yet. Slowly, Daniel began to notice something. The more he followed his dream, the more distance grew between him and those who tried to hold him back. Some friends stopped inviting him to gatherings. They said, "Daniel is too busy with his silly book." His boss gave him colder looks, and even at home, silence filled the air. It hurt. But Daniel also felt lighter. The fewer voices he had around him, the clearer his own voice became. One night, after another long day of work, Daniel walked home alone. He could hear laughter in the distance, his friends enjoying themselves without him. For a moment, he felt a sting of sadness. But then he realized, while they laughed in the same place, he was moving forward. They were standing still, and he was walking towards something greater. That thought gave him strength. He paused under the dim glow of a streetlight and whispered to himself, "It is better to walk alone toward my dream than to stand still with those who do not believe." The words felt heavy, but they also felt true. That was the night Daniel accepted the cost of his choice. He would lose some friends. He would disappoint some people. But he would not lose himself. And in keeping his dream alive, he opened the door for new voices to enter, voices that would lift him, not drag him down. As he turned the corner and headed home, the night air was cool, but Daniel felt a warmth inside. A quiet strength. He knew the road ahead would still be hard. But he also knew this, he had chosen his path, and no amount of doubt could turn him away from it now. And with that step, Daniel left behind the voices that held him back, making space for the opportunities that waited ahead. The unexpected helper. The nights had grown longer for Daniel. He studied alone, whispering words into the silence, repeating phrases again and again, even when his voice grew tired. Each page of his book felt heavy, not only with words but with the weight of his struggle. Some days he wondered if anyone could even see how hard he was trying. The loneliness pressed against him like a shadow, making him feel small. One evening, Daniel sat at a small corner table in the local library. He was reading slowly, sounding out each word with care. His lips moved, but his voice was quiet, almost afraid to be heard. Around him, people came and went, but no one paid attention. He felt invisible. And yet, he kept going, because somewhere deep inside, he believed his effort mattered. It was on one of those quiet nights that the unexpected happened. As Daniel packed up his worn-out notebook, an older man approached him. His face was kind, his hair touched with gray, and his eyes carried a calm strength. He placed a gentle hand on the table and said softly, "You work very hard, don't you?" Daniel froze. No one had ever noticed before. For a moment, he did not know what to say. He nodded shyly, unsure if this stranger was mocking him or truly interested. The man smiled warmly. "I've seen you here many times. Always studying. Always repeating the words. That is good. That is rare." His voice was filled with respect, not judgment. Daniel's heart beat faster. For so long, he had carried his dream alone. And now, for the first time, someone saw it. The man introduced himself as Mr. Thomas, a retired teacher who often visited the library. He explained that he loved languages and had taught English for many years. "When I watch you, Daniel," he said, "I see not only a student. I see a fighter." Many people say they want to learn, but few are willing to work in silence, day after day, like you. The words felt like light breaking through a cloudy sky. Daniel's chest warmed, and his eyes grew wet. He had been called foolish, stubborn, even selfish. But never a fighter. Mr. Thomas sat with him that evening. He listened as Daniel tried to read a short passage. The words stumbled out, broken and heavy with accent. Daniel lowered his head, embarrassed. But instead of laughing, Mr. Thomas nodded kindly. "Good. Very good. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you are moving." Something shifted in Daniel's heart. For the first time, someone believed in him not because he was perfect, but because he tried. That night, Daniel walked home with a smile he hadn't felt in months. Over the next weeks, Mr. Thomas became a quiet but steady presence. He did not give Daniel everything. He did not promise shortcuts. Instead, he offered something greater: guidance and encouragement. Sometimes he explained a grammar rule. Sometimes he corrected a word. But more often, he reminded Daniel, progress is slow, but it is still progress. Step by step, the mountain is climbed. Daniel began to feel less alone. Each meeting with Mr. Thomas gave him strength. And yet, something inside him also changed. He realized that the mentor was not carrying him forward, he was only showing Daniel the strength he already had. One evening, Daniel asked, "Why do you help me?" Mr. Thomas leaned back and smiled. "Because I see myself in you. Many years ago, I was young and full of doubt. Someone believed in me, and that belief changed my life. Now I do the same for you. But remember, Daniel, the real power is not in me. It is in you. I am only a mirror, showing you what you already carry." Those words sank deep into Daniel's heart. He thought of all the lonely nights, all the laughter from his friends, all the sighs from his family. And now, here was proof: his persistence had not been in vain. His fight had attracted help. His effort had created connection. Daniel began to walk taller, not because he suddenly became fluent, but because he no longer doubted the path. He saw now that fighting for a dream had a hidden strength. It called out to others who could help along the way. One evening, as they closed their books, Mr. Thomas looked at Daniel and said, "One day, you will not only learn English. You will teach others what it means to fight for something. And that lesson is even greater than the language itself." Daniel carried those words with him as he walked home under the quiet night sky. The loneliness that once weighed so heavy was now replaced by a steady flame of hope. He was still on the same road, still facing challenges, still hearing doubts around him. But now he knew he was not truly alone. And more importantly, he understood something new: his fight had meaning. His persistence was not only building his future, but also opening doors to help he never expected. The world had noticed, and the world had answered. Daniel smiled softly to himself. The journey ahead was still long, but his steps felt lighter. Not because someone was carrying him, but because his own strength had drawn the help he needed. And with this new strength, he was ready to walk toward the breakthrough that waited just beyond the horizon. The breakthrough moment. The day began like any other. The sun rose, the streets filled with noise, and Daniel carried his books under his arm. But deep inside, something felt different. Today was not just another day of study. Today he would stand before others and speak English aloud, not in the safety of his room, not in whispers to himself, but in front of real people. His hands shook as he walked toward the small community hall where a gathering was being held. He had been asked to give a short introduction in English, just a few sentences. To some, it sounded like nothing. But for Daniel, it was everything. His heart pounded with both fear and excitement. He remembered the boy he once was, the boy who could not pronounce a single word correctly, who hid in silence when teachers asked questions, who felt smaller each time others laughed. And now, after months and years of effort, he was about to face the moment he had dreamed of. When he entered the hall, he saw the crowd. Not hundreds of people, but enough to make his chest tighten. Friends, neighbors, and strangers filled the chairs. Many of them knew Daniel's struggle. Some had doubted him, some had even told him to quit. Their eyes followed him as he walked to the front. Daniel's legs felt heavy, as if they wanted to turn back. For a second, the old fear returned. A voice in his head whispered, "You will fail. They will laugh." But another voice rose within him, stronger, calmer. It was the voice he had built through long nights of practice, through tears and mistakes, through encouragement from Mr. Thomas. It said, "You are ready. You have earned this." The room grew quiet as Daniel looked at the microphone. He took a deep breath. His palms were sweaty, but his heart carried a fire. Slowly, he began to speak. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel. I am very happy to be here with you today." The words came out clear, not perfect, but strong. The sound of his own voice in English filled his ears, and for a moment he could hardly believe it was him. He continued, line by line, the sentences he had prepared. Each word was a step forward, each pause a mountain climbed. The audience listened in silence. Some raised their eyebrows in surprise. Others nodded with encouragement. Daniel felt the energy shift. No one laughed. No one mocked. Instead, they respected him. As he finished his short speech, a wave of applause broke out. It was not thunderous, but it was real, and it carried more weight than anything he had felt before. Daniel smiled a wide, honest smile that came from the depths of his soul. At that moment, he felt powerful. Not powerful in the sense of control, but powerful because he had faced his fear and won. He had crossed a line he once thought impossible. The world no longer seemed closed. It felt open, alive with possibility. After the event, people came to him. Some said, "Daniel, that was amazing. I didn't know you could speak like that." Others said, "You have improved so much. You inspire us." Each word of praise lit a fire inside him, confirming that his struggle had meaning. But the greatest change was not in their words, it was in Daniel's heart. For the first time, his dream no longer felt like a dream. It felt real. He could see himself moving forward, step by step, toward the future he once thought unreachable. That night, walking home under the stars, Daniel replayed the moment in his mind again and again. He remembered the fear, the silence before he spoke, the applause that followed. And he realized something important: this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Because with every breakthrough comes new challenges. The speech had given him confidence, but it had also opened a new door. Now people expected more from him. Now the world would test him at a higher level. Could he hold a conversation? Could he listen and respond quickly? Could he keep growing, even when the path became harder? Daniel understood that his journey had only reached a turning point. The mountain was still high, the road still long. But the difference now was that he believed he could climb it. He had proof, living proof, that his fight could create results. He thought of the younger version of himself, sitting alone in the corner, repeating simple words with a trembling voice. That boy would never have believed this moment could come. And yet, here it was. The contrast was so great, it almost brought tears to Daniel's eyes. As he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Daniel whispered softly to himself, "This is just the start." He smiled, knowing the road ahead would be filled with new trials, new doubts, and new tests. But he was no longer the boy who feared failure. He was the young man who had spoken, and who had been heard. And with that thought, he closed his eyes, ready for the challenges that tomorrow would bring. The test of fire. It was a bright morning, but Daniel felt no light inside him. He stood outside the building, staring at the doors that would soon open to his greatest challenge yet. This was not practice anymore. This was not a safe hall filled with friendly faces. Today, Daniel would face a real test. A job interview, fully in English. For weeks, he had prepared. He memorized answers, practiced his pronunciation, repeated questions late at night until his throat grew dry. He had even stood in front of the mirror, forcing himself to speak with confidence, even when his reflection looked afraid. And yet, on this day, as he waited for his turn, the old fear returned. His chest tightened. His palms grew wet. His mind replayed every past failure, every moment of silence, every time someone laughed at his broken words, every time he wanted to disappear. A voice inside whispered, "You cannot do this. You are not ready. You will fail." For a moment, he almost believed it. He thought about leaving. He imagined walking away, convincing himself that it wasn't the right time. No one would blame him. No one would know. He could still escape. But as he took a step back, another memory rose in him. The memory of the night he first spoke before others. The memory of the applause, the pride in his chest, the strength he had discovered. And then, like a sharp flame, came the words Mr. Thomas had once said, "No one will do it for you, Daniel. If you want this, you must step forward yourself." Daniel stopped. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. His heart was still racing, his knees still weak, but he knew running away would hurt more than failure. Because failure could teach him. Escape could not. When his name was called, Daniel's legs felt heavy as he walked inside the room. 3 interviewers sat at a long table. Their faces were calm but serious. Daniel's heart thumped so loudly he wondered if they could hear it. "Good morning," one of them said. "Please introduce yourself." Daniel's mouth went dry. For a second, nothing came out. The silence stretched, and fear tried to pull him down again. But then he remembered his promise, to himself, to his dream, to the boy who had once been too afraid to speak. He lifted his head and began. "Good morning. My name is Daniel. I am very thankful for this chance." The words were simple, but they broke the wall of silence. Slowly, sentence by sentence, Daniel continued. He spoke of his studies, of the small jobs he had done, of his passion for learning. His voice trembled at times, and he made mistakes. But instead of stopping, he pushed forward. Each word was a step through fire. The interviewers nodded, listening carefully. They asked questions. Some were easy. Some were hard. Daniel's mind raced, sometimes searching desperately for the right words. At one point, he almost froze again. But then he remembered, courage does not mean no fear, it means moving forward even with fear. So he did. Minutes passed, though to Daniel it felt like hours. At last, the final question came. One of the interviewers leaned forward and asked, "Why should we choose you?" Daniel's chest rose and fell. He looked at their eyes, then spoke from his heart. "I know my English is not perfect. But every day, I work to improve. I never stop. I believe if you choose me, you are not only choosing what I can do now. You are choosing who I will become tomorrow. And I promise, I will not stop growing." There was silence in the room. The interviewers exchanged a glance, then wrote notes on their papers. Daniel sat quietly, his hands still shaking, but his eyes firm. When the interview ended, he walked outside into the sunlight. He did not know if he had won the job. But deep inside, something had changed. He had faced the fire, and he had not run away. On the way home, he thought about the journey. The weak boy who once hid from words. The young man who dared to speak in public. And now, the person who sat in front of strangers and told his story in another language. He realized something powerful: strength is not born in comfort. It is born in fire. Daniel smiled as he walked. He had discovered courage, not the absence of fear, but the decision to rise above it. And in that moment, he knew. Whatever came next, he would not face it as the boy he once was. He would face it as the young man he had become. The road ahead was still long. More challenges waited, perhaps even harder than this. But now, Daniel carried proof within himself. Proof that when fear tried to stop him, he could still step forward. Proof that when the test of fire arrived, he did not break. He burned brighter. And with each step, Daniel felt the strength of someone who had surprised even himself, ready for the final transformation that awaited. The transformation. There are moments in life when you realize you will never be the same again. For Daniel, that moment came slowly, like the rising of the sun after a long, dark night. He woke up one morning, looked at himself in the mirror, and saw someone different staring back. Not the boy who once trembled at every English word. Not the boy who hid in silence, afraid of being judged. What he saw now was a young man with fire in his eyes, with hope in his chest, and with a voice he was no longer afraid to use. His journey had been full of fear, mistakes, and nights when he almost gave up. He remembered those times clearly, the endless hours practicing simple sentences, the shame of speaking and being misunderstood, the temptation to quit when the weight felt too heavy. But as he stood there now, he realized something powerful. Those struggles had not broken him. They had built him. Every mistake had been a step. Every failure had been a teacher. Every fear had been a doorway to courage. And little by little, those small steps had transformed the weak boy into the strong man he was becoming. Daniel began to notice changes not only in his language but in his life. His English was smoother now. He could talk with strangers without freezing. He could join conversations without waiting in silence. He even found joy in learning new words, like each one was a tool helping him build the life he dreamed of. But more important than the language was the confidence growing inside him. He walked differently now, his shoulders higher, his steps firmer. He spoke differently too, not only in English but also in his native language. His voice carried strength, as if he finally believed in himself. The people around him noticed it as well. Friends who once teased him now listened to him with respect. Teachers who once worried about him now smiled with pride. Even his family, who had quietly doubted his chances, began to see that Daniel was not just dreaming, he was changing. One evening, Daniel sat alone in his room, thinking about the long path he had walked. He thought about the boy he used to be, shy, uncertain, always hiding behind excuses. And he thought about the person he was now, determined, hopeful, ready to keep fighting. The difference was so great that it almost felt like two different lives. He realized something he had never fully understood before. Success was not about waiting for a perfect chance. It was not about someone else opening the door for him. Success was about walking forward, step by step, even when the road felt impossible. He remembered the words he once told the interviewers, "You are not choosing who I am now, but who I will become tomorrow." Those words were not just for them, they were for himself. They were a reminder that growth never stops. Confidence never comes all at once. It is built, like bricks in a wall, one effort at a time. Daniel smiled as he thought of it. He was no longer chasing a dream blindly. He was living it, building it, one step at a time. The hopeless boy was gone. In his place stood someone who believed, not only in the dream but also in his own ability to reach it. Of course, the journey was not finished. Daniel knew there would be more challenges ahead. There would be harder tests, bigger fears, new moments of doubt. But he was no longer afraid of those challenges. Because now, he carried proof inside himself. Proof that he could rise, no matter how many times he fell. Proof that change was possible, even when it seemed too far away. As he walked down the street the next morning, the world itself seemed brighter. The same trees, the same buildings, the same roads he had walked many times before, but everything looked different. Why? Because he was different. His eyes no longer looked down in shame. They looked forward, ready for what was coming. Daniel began to dream bigger. Not just of speaking English fluently, but of using it to open doors to new jobs, new friendships, new experiences. He dreamed of traveling, of meeting people from other countries, of standing on stages to tell his story. He dreamed not as a boy wishing for a miracle, but as a man ready to fight for what he wanted. And the most beautiful part? He now wanted to share his journey with others. He wanted to tell them that they too could rise, that they too could transform, that their fears were not the end but the beginning. Because if he could do it, then maybe they could as well. As he thought about this, Daniel turned back for a moment and imagined the boy he once was. The boy who sat quietly in class, too afraid to speak. The boy who cried at night, believing he would never change. Daniel wanted to reach out to that boy, to take his hand and say, "Do not give up. You will not always be this way. One day, you will stand tall. One day, you will speak with courage. One day, you will surprise even yourself." That thought filled his heart with gratitude. Gratitude for the pain, for the struggle, for the fire that had shaped him. Without those hard days, he would never have discovered his strength. Without the fear, he would never have found courage. Without the darkness, he would never have known the beauty of the light. And so, Daniel walked forward, ready for the next part of his journey. But this time, he walked not as the boy who doubted himself, but as the young man who had been transformed. His eyes were clear, his steps steady, his heart strong. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. But he also knew something far greater. He was no longer walking as who he used to be. He was walking as who he had become. And as he prepared to share his story with others, Daniel smiled. Because now, his life was not only about his own dream. It was about inspiring others to believe in theirs. The final lesson for you. Daniel takes a deep breath. His story has been long, full of battles and doubts, but also full of victories and growth. Now, as he looks back, he feels something stronger than pride. He feels the need to turn, to face you, the one listening, the one watching, and speak directly to your heart. "This is my story," he says softly. "But now, this is your story too." For a moment, his words hang in the air, and you realize something important. His struggle, his pain, his victories, they were never only about him. They were about something greater. They were about every person who has ever carried a dream but felt too small to chase it. Every person who has ever been afraid to speak, afraid to act, afraid to fail. His story is yours, and yours is his. He remembers the nights when he wanted to quit, when he thought, "This is impossible. I am not good enough." Maybe you know that feeling too. Maybe you have whispered those same words to yourself. And if you have, Daniel's journey is proof that you are not alone and that those words do not have to be the end. Because here is the truth he learned, the truth he now gives to you: no one will fight for your dream. No one will carry it for you. No one will wake up every morning and walk the path in your place. That responsibility, and that power, belongs to you. It may sound heavy. It may even sound unfair. But think about it, if your dream is truly yours, why would anyone else fight for it? And if no one else can fight for it, then that means something wonderful. The dream is safe in your hands. It cannot be stolen. It cannot be lost. It waits for you, and only you, to rise up and claim it. Daniel leans forward, as if to speak a little closer. I was not special, he says. I was not the smartest in the room. I was not the strongest. I was just the one who refused to give up. And that was enough. Step by step, day by day, I became stronger. And so can you. Maybe you have a dream of speaking English fluently. Or maybe your dream is different, starting a business, traveling the world, writing a book, or simply becoming more confident in your own skin. Whatever it is, the principle is the same. Fear will try to stop you. Doubt will whisper in your ear. People may laugh, or ignore you, or even tell you to give up. But the lesson Daniel learned is this: you do not need to listen to them. What matters is that you listen to the voice inside you that says, I want this. I will fight for this. And when fear rises, and it will, you do not have to wait for courage to magically appear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is walking forward while fear walks beside you. Courage is trembling and still choosing to act. Daniel knows this deeply, because that is exactly how he lived. And if he could do it, step by step, then so can you. He closes his eyes for a moment, remembering the boy he used to be, the boy who hid in silence, the boy who almost gave up. And then he opens them again, looking straight ahead, as if looking at you. If I had waited for someone to fight for me, he says, I would still be waiting today. Nothing would have changed. But I decided to fight for myself. And that changed everything. Think about that. How many of your own dreams have been waiting? How many times have you told yourself, one day? How many times have you hoped that someone else would open the door for you? Daniel's voice cuts through the excuses. Do not wait, he says. Do not let your life pass while your dream sleeps. Wake it up. Take the first step, even if it is small. And then take another. And another. That is how a dream grows. That is how a life transforms. It does not matter where you begin. Daniel began at the very bottom, filled with fear, barely able to speak. You may feel the same way now, lost, weak, unsure. But beginnings do not define endings. A weak start can still lead to a strong finish. What matters is not how you begin, but that you keep going. And here is something else Daniel wants you to know: your journey will inspire others, even if you do not realize it. When you fight for your dream, you give silent permission for others to do the same. Your courage becomes their courage. Your growth becomes their hope. This is why Daniel shares his story with you, not to show off, but to light a spark inside your own heart. So let me ask you, what is the dream you carry? What is the goal that has been sitting quietly in your chest, waiting for you to say, "Yes, I will fight for this." Imagine it now. Picture it clearly. And then hear Daniel's voice, strong and clear, "It is possible." Not easy, but possible. And you are capable of more than you think. Daniel smiles now, his journey behind him, but yours still ahead. "This is my final lesson," he says. "Fight for your dream, because no one will do it for you. But if you do, step by step, you will see it grow. And one day, you will look back, just as I do now, and realize you were stronger than you ever believed." The words linger, soft but powerful. You feel them not just in your mind, but in your heart. They are an invitation, a challenge, and a promise all at once. The story may be ending, but your story is just beginning. Daniel's eyes meet yours one last time. And with calm certainty, he speaks the final words. "Fight for your dream, because no one will do it for you." Thank you so much for watching Easy English Official today. You did not just listen to a story, you practiced English, and you learned something powerful about life. Remember, every time you come here, you are not only improving your language skills, you are building courage, one word at a time. Daniel's journey is proof that step by step, everything changes. And your journey can be the same. Do not stop here. Keep practicing. Keep fighting for your dream. Because no one else can do it for you. If you enjoyed this video, I invite you to join our community. We are uploading new videos every single day, stories, lessons, and motivational content to help you learn English and grow as a person. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and you will never miss the next story. And please, share your thoughts in the comments. What part of today's story touched you the most? What dream are you ready to fight for? Your words may inspire someone else who is listening right now. Finally, remember this: your English will grow, your confidence will grow, and your life will grow, as long as you keep taking those small steps forward. So stay with us, practice every day, and let's walk this journey together. Thank you for being here today. Stay strong, stay inspired, and as always, fight for your dream, because no one will do it for you. See you tomorrow in the next video.